Well, the first card of 2024 is in the books, and for an Apex card, very good. I kind of said this in my prediction video, is that I was a little underwhelmed by the top of the card, obviously, just because of the nature of the main event being a rematch, the nature of the co-main event being a rematch, and the nature of the third fight of the night, or third last fight of the night, which wound up being the co-main event, being between two fighters that I just have fonder memories of. Like, they're guys not at their peak anymore. They're a combined age of 75 years old. And it was like, all right, that's kind of a weak ending to a card, but the undercard is fire. And it was. There was a lot of interesting, fun fights, brutal finishes. And realistically, there's only one fight on this card that I wouldn't want to watch again, which is Arlovsky versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. The standard heavyweight problem when the fight does not end really, really quickly. And it seems like everybody on social media and so on, we're having a good time, enjoying themselves, and that is always nice. I am doing this review a day late because yesterday was, of course, Sunday football playoffs. I am a big Green Bay Packer fan. I am very happy that they beat the Dallas Cowboys because my cousin is a Dallas Cowboy fan. So there is always that. And also, I just find Cowboy fans to be somewhat annoying. So I was obviously watching that and enjoying that as opposed to getting a review in. Now, the downside of that is I've seen a couple other recap podcasts. There you go. And I've seen, like, people's picks for where does fighter A and fighter B go next. And of course, it always makes me a little bit like, I'm like, damn, that was my idea. That was my idea. And it's not that I want to be like super original with my picks. In fact, honestly, if I ever come up with a fight that no one else is thinking of, I actually think I've done a bad job. Because that means that the fight doesn't make any sense as a whole. Like, that's the problem. So there is that. But I did notice that there were a couple of fights I thought I'd get a little reaction of like, ooh, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought of that, but now that I think about that, that's really cool. And then I'm listening to like the MMA News, MMA Weekly, Bloody Elbow, etc. podcast recaps, and I'm like, darn, like 2 out of 3 of these have the same idea. I thought I had a little bit of a hot take. Not a scorcher, but I thought I had a little bit of a hot take with some of these. Anyways, I didn't change any of my picks at my next matches though. Even if a better one was suggested. So there you go. Let's get through the fights here and handle this with a plum. Main event: Johnny Walker versus Magomed Ankalaev. Now, obviously, I said if Ankalaev comes out and wrestles, it's actually a pretty easy fight because Johnny Walker, and this goes for basically everyone in the division, so this is not even a Johnny Walker insult. Very few people are actually able to deal with his wrestling, and he didn't. So we ended up with the hard way, if I may quote the Booty Warrior, which was initially Johnny Walker having a lot of success with like an aggressive pressure kind of zany game, like doing some capoeira stuff, even like throwing an axe kick. What the heck? Going out there and like putting it on Ankalaev early, but not like really hurting him at any point because Ankalaev is defensively sound. Ankalaev is super chill, and he appears to have a really good chin. Like, he's not been knocked out at all. And then there we got the dick kick, of course. And then in the second round, a little bit more zany stuff from Walker, but we get this exchange where Walker throws a kick, low kick to the legs. It gets kind of tangled in Ankalaev's legs. Ankalaev bonks him with a 2-piece, and then down, throw a couple extra shots, finish the job, get the win, call for the title shot. I wouldn't be surprised if his next fight is a title shot. Now, like, the next title fight at 205 should be Jamal Hill versus Alex Pereira, but Jamal Hill is 1, injured, 2, has legal issues. So, who knows? Honestly, like, I'm not suggesting he's going to go to jail for any like length of time, but like, and the UFC certainly has booked people who have been in the middle of legal problems before. But, it depends on how that ends up going. And obviously, does Hill feel like fighting while he's having legal issues? And he's still got that Achilles tendon injury. So you never know. We could get Ankalaev versus Pereira. He's the only other one I can think of, because as much as like there was like a weird push for an Anthony Smith, Alex Pereira title fight, I have zero interest in that. Zero. None. Negative. Please don't make that happen. So, I mean, there is that. And for Walker, I do have a rematch that I am going to recommend here, which is going to sound weird because I was down on this fight because it was a rematch I didn't need. I was down on the co-main event until it fell apart because it was a rematch we didn't need. This is a rematch I think we do need. Johnny Walker versus Khalil Roundtree. That has some serious appeal to me. It's been, I think, the better part of 3 years since they fought the first time. They have both gotten way better because they were both very, very raw at the time. They're still, in some ways, quite raw, but they have improved. They have gotten better. They have become different fighters. Fundamentally, same kind of keys to victory, but different fighters and much better fighters. So why not have them fight again? They're also just kind of in like that position to do that. They're like not contenders, but they're the step down from contender. And if Roundtree wins, particularly, it opens up a whole new world for him. If Walker wins, not so much, because Walker has fought some of like the contenders and generally, I think, lost most of them, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, he's got the loss to Magomed Ankalaev, which is, a problem for a title contender, but like, also the loss to Jamal Hill, the loss to Nikita Krylov, these kind of, make they make those rematches not super interesting. And his big wins, of course, like Anthony Smith, Paul Craig, Kutaraba, Ryan Spawn, and Roundtree back in 2018. So, not really making a case for that. But, I mean, still, if he beats Roundtree, it puts him into a better place, and that's still good for him. They canceled Matthias Nicolau versus Mental Cop when Cop missed weight. There's a certain karmatic justice to that, because I've said this. I am fine with trash talk. I am fine with differentiating yourself from the pack. We're going to talk about John Silva later in that regard. But I did find that Mental Cop was going way too deep. And it's not even the homophobic stuff, because frankly, I kind of just expect that. like that's normal. That's unfortunately something that exists just within a significant segment of society. So like when Charlie Radke calls the crowd the F word, when Mental Cop calls people the F word, which has great resonance to me because my last name changes into that a little too easy. It's fine. It's whatever. It's not fine from a societal standpoint, but like it's in society. But like when he gets into like shame on your ancestors and stuff, that was a bit weird. Like that's an esoteric level of like cringy trash talk that I am just not here for. So I was kind of happy. Also, the fact that like for a guy who talks the way he is to be essentially a counter fighter, a front foot counter fighter, but still a counter fighter nonetheless, to me has always been a little bit mismatched, kind of like Sean Strickland's psycho gimmick, but like less so. And at the end of the day, watching him miss weight and not get that fight against Matthias Nicolau, which probably would have propelled him into a title shot, I don't know. It feels kind of good. Jim Miller, Gabriel Benitez was the co-main event instead. Jim Miller going out there at the age of 40 and just delivering. He went out there, and when Benitez kicked him, he kicked it back. Let those hard leg kicks boom and do their thing. That was very impressive. Miller was doing a good job of following up his lead-in shots with actual power shots, which Benitez really wasn't doing. Benitez was landing at a similar rate, but it was very much the setup shot, the jab, the low kick, etc. There wasn't a lot of like power shots, whereas Miller did a couple times in the first and second round. Actually, give Benitez a good clonk. Nothing that was going to end the fight, nothing that was going to change things, but like getting the job done. I gave Miller the first 2 rounds, and then the third round, he's looking a little gassed. He's looking a little tired, although ironically, looking better apprised to actually counter the jab of Benitez, because when Benitez would jab, he would come up and over with the right hand, and that was landing pretty well. That's kind of weird that he like worked that out in the third round. Gets the takedown, gets the back control, gets the rear naked choke on, more of a neck crank. Cranks it, gets the tap out. He wins, wants to fight on UFC 300. Please let that happen. I really want that to happen. He called out Paul Felder, Matt Brown, and Brock Lesnar. Obviously, Brock Lesnar, not happening. A lot of people online were talking about how he should have called out Paddy Pimblett. I don't know. I feel like Miller's just not interested in that. I feel like Miller wants like kind of a nostalgia fight because like he called out Felder because Felder's a warrior. He called out Brown because Brown's got the most knockouts in UFC history. I want to say, like these are like legacy fights basically. But legacy fights, to be clear, because a lot of people are like, why are you okay with this as a legacy fight, but you're not okay with John Jones versus Stipe Miocic as a legacy fight? Because John Jones has a title. Like, I don't care about a legacy fight with a title. I didn't care about Bisping versus Henderson either. Like, it's you're the champion. You should fight the number one contender. There is a clear number one contender at heavyweight. It's Tom Aspinall. Will you get a lot out of it? No, because the John Jones haters are going to say, well, Aspinall was never all that good. They're going to do similar to what they did with Cyril Gane. Now, by the way, I am kind of one of those ones who did it with Cyril Gane because I was just very disappointed in Cyril Gane. Like, he did everything wrong. But had Jones beaten Cyril Gane and Gane had, not done everything wrong, I probably would have given credit for that. So unless Aspinall is going to display a complete lack of ability to do basic anti-wrestling striking and basic wrestling, I would give him the credit. But I understand that like there's a solid segment of the fan base that would give him no credit for beating Tom Aspinall if he did. I get that. It's why I don't blame John Jones for going after the Stipe Miocic fight. I do blame the UFC for letting this like situation happen though. Like it's ridiculous. And I blame the fans for wanting to see it because I don't know why you want to see it. Anyways, my matchup for Miller would be Jared Gordon. The reason for this is I think there's a great deal of fun to be had with that fight. There's a heck of a storyline. You could talk about Jim Miller's comeback from Lyme disease and just how long he's been here, the longevity, the tenacity of his fighting career. You can talk about Jared Gordon's life story of tenacity. It's like the ultimate tenacity fight. Like, do it. Go forth. And it's a fight that I think is very applicable to both guys. I don't really want to see him go up and fight Matt Brown. I don't feel like Paul Felder wants to come out of retirement. Really? I think there's a part of him, like every fighter, that kind of wants to entertain the idea. But I think that realistically, he's happy where he is. And you can never retire too early and be done with fighting too early, in my opinion. So there is that. Alrighty. I don't have anything else to add to that fight. For Benitez, I have Slava Borsho. I think that would be a fun fight. Ricky Simon versus Mario Bautista. This was the fight of the night, in my opinion. I did think Simon won the first round. Two judges had it otherwise. And a lot of social media gave Bautista the first round. I'm a little bit surprised by that because he did get dropped. I mean, it wasn't a clean drop. It wasn't a, you got your bell rung. It wasn't the, oh my God, this is almost over. Because it was like basically one of those big hooks to like the chest area that threw Bautista off balance. But like, it's still a drop. It's still a knockdown. And I don't know. I thought otherwise the striking was close enough that like that moment alone basically got that. And someone else had to take down and did some things. The first round kind of went like what I expected this fight to go. The second and third, nope. Second particularly, Bautista shut the wrestling down, just started beating Simone up on the feet because Simone, is a limited striker. He's got a limited range that he's comfortable engaging in. He doesn't have a tremendous variety of technique, and he's a little bit, predictable. Like there's a relatively limited decision-making tree behind his striking. So yeah, watching the second round was like, all right, this is Bautista at his like finest and getting the job done. And then in the third round, there was a big moment for Simone. He got the Matt Hughes style, like pick him up, slam him at the cage type thing, like the carry him across the octagon. Very, very cool, but didn't really do a lot with it. Got his other takedowns stuffed. Bautista managed to get to his feet. I ended up losing this fight very consistently because I had picked Simone to be able to wrestle and to be able to counter strike. Basically, Bautista enough to win a decision. Didn't. Bautista proved that his wrestling is way better than I expected it to be because I had been worried because Bautista had historically been easy to take down, hard to keep down because he scrambles well. But it's like Simone's an amazing scrambler. Should be able to hold him down. Didn't actually end up happening. So great run by Mario Bautista. He called out Rob Font. I'm okay with that fight, but I would prefer Jonathan Martinez. The reason I would say this is because Jonathan Martinez represents a guy who's going to fight from the outside and kind of outrange Bautista. That's the thing I've always been a little bit worried about, is that Bautista is most comfortable when people kind of like crash into him a little bit. And he gets to kind of like be a counter wrestler, counter scrambler kind of guy. Martinez is just not going to do that. He's just going to give him a fresh, new look. Something we haven't seen Bautista have to deal with. I'm intrigued by that because Bautista seems very intelligent. The MMA Lab is behind him. By the way, Marcus McGee also had a big night for the MMA Lab, so good night for them. For Simone, I've got Saeed Nurmagomedov because it would be a similar fight to the one that Saeed was losing to Sayakub. I think I have that name right. Kakramanov. I have the last name right. I know that. And I would be interested in that, as well as I would be interested in seeing Simone get a little bit of a confidence boost after losing 2 in a row to Yadong Song and Mario Bautista, who are both very, very, very good. It would be interesting to see him fight Saeed, who is still dangerous, not by any means a layup, but an easier fight. Phil Haas, Bruno Ferreira went different than I thought, because I thought Haas would look better. So kudos to Ferreira. He got some takedowns and his stand-up looked a little bit better. Worked in some nice step-up knees into the whole thing. Haas looked better in the sense that he didn't get flatlined by the first hard shot he got hit with. It was like the fourth. But yeah, he got flatlined again. Ferreira called out Shara Bullet after the fight. I don't think that they would do that fight, but I would prefer him fighting Edmund Shabazian anyways. I think that's a fun fight. I think it's a really fun fight. And Phil Haas, I've said it before. I'm not going to tell a guy to retire because that's not my place. What I will say is I'm not interested in seeing Phil Haas fight at a high level. It's not that I don't think he's a good fighter. It's not that I hate him. It's not any of those things, because to be honest, I like him and I think he is actually a pretty good fighter. I just don't want to see him get flatlined again and again and again. I don't mind seeing knockouts. Obviously, I would have ditched the sport a long time ago. But there's a point where a guy has been knocked out a couple of times, and it doesn't seem like there's anything fixing the whole problem of him getting knocked out. Now, Andrei Arlovski, who we're going to talk about later, did largely fix this problem. So maybe talk with him. I don't know. Replicate that style. I don't know. But as is, I'm not overly interested in seeing Phil Haas fight again. So I don't have a fight next for him. I have retirement. Go do some grappling things or some wrestling things. You have a solid grappling and wrestling base. You, I think, would be a good coach, actually, because all things considered, for a guy who's not a native striker, he's developed a pretty good offensive striking game. Just don't listen to him defensively. But I think you could utilize him at a gym as a coach. So hey, there are bright future elements for Phil Haas. I just don't think that they're in MMA, or at least in the cage. Andrei Arlovski versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. Nice segue here. I gave rounds 1 and 3 to Waldo, round 2 to Arlovski. There's not much to talk about here. Waldo Cortez Acosta, when he was able to find his range and do some things, hit Arlovski reasonably hard, did some things. But Arlovski neutralized him for a large part. Just didn't have enough offense of his own, really, for me to, buy it. Nothing really changed about Waldo Cortez Acosta here. He's still bad about checking leg kicks. He's still easy to frustrate. Make him do the salsa dancing stuff and the spitting his mouthpiece out at one point. Very much spitting his mouthpiece out. I would have taken a point away from that because, to me, that's ridiculous. I don't have a ton more to add. It's one of those fights where, I don't know. I was hoping that Waldo would knock out Andrei Arlovski and we would at least have that to go on. But he's just not very good. But the problem is that at heavyweight, he is big, strong, athletic, explosive, fast, etc. All of those things that, you know what? They'll have him around for a really, really long time, and they'll keep him in fights that he should otherwise lose. Because I think he's worse than basically every fighter he's fought on a technical level. It's just he has the physicality, the raw durability to actually win. And the shame is he's learned some things. I'm not going to say he hasn't learned anything, but his punches are still very poorly formed. he really does not know what to do with anyone who just doesn't rock'em sock'em robot fight him. Outside of, all right, he's not doing what I want him to do. He's not being stupid. I am gonna salsa dance and try and make him come to me. I don't know. It's just weird. Him versus Shamil Gaziev might be a fun fight. And for Arlovsky, he's in that retirement phase because like he's 44 years old, but dude's making six figures from the UFC. So I don't know. Go get that money and fight, I don't know, Mick Parkin or something. Or Jamal Pogues. Matthew Semmelsberger versus Preston Parsons. This fight was frustrating for Semmelsberger because I think that there is a really, really good fighter in Matthew Semmelsberger. I do. I think he's got the athletic ability. I think he's got the willingness to do anything. He's got the mentality to be grimy and tough and all of these things. Like I think he has all the baseline abilities. And the only thing holding him back is a complete lack of fight IQ and decision making. Because in the first round of this fight, there was a moment when like Parsons got Semmelsberger in the clinch and Parsons couldn't control him. Semmelsberger took control of the clinch. Actually dumped him. Parsons dumped him to the ground. Semmelsberger got right back up. Neither guy was pulling ahead, but like Semmelsberger was consenting to Parsons' fight. And inevitably, Parsons broke him. Just kept going. Landed more shots, I'm pretty sure. Let me have a look at I've got the UFC stats right here. Parsons outlanded him. Significant strikes 20-11, 17-9, 10-8 in the third round, where he had the 3 minutes and 41 seconds of top control and had a couple submission attempts, and also had 35 total strikes, just not a lot of significant ones. But yeah, Parsons basically just wore him down. And the fact that Semmelsberger would not avoid the only part of the fight that Parsons was prepared for. Not prepared for, but like that Parsons was capable of winning, which was a close-range boxing match and wrestling and scrambling affair. There were a lot of moments where Semmelsberger could have just stopped doing what Parsons wanted him to do, and he didn't. That makes it so damn frustrating. We did get like a cool like armbar bit and like Kimura attempt. Like there were some neat moments in this fight, and it's not a bad fight by any means, but it is a frustrating fight for someone who wants to see Matthew Semmelsberger deploy some fight IQ. Why? Anyways, Parsons got the W. I scored all 3 rounds for him. I think most of the judges did as well. So good work there. For Preston Parsons, I've got Mitibik Oralbai, I think is how you say his name. I may be wrong. 2 guys who I am not sold on because I think their games are a little bit too narrow and they're not quite that super plus athlete that you need to be to make that work. But hey, I'd be fine with either of them becoming something. And for Semmelsberger, I've got Kevin Jousset as an opponent, mostly because like it's a somewhat bankable, recognizable name for Jousset to go out there and beat. Because it would be the same thing. It would be the opposite of this fight, but it would be Semmelsberger probably consenting to the exact fight that Jousset wants. And I'm kind of done with Semmelsberger in that regard because like I don't know how you fix fight IQ. I don't know how you fix decision making. Marcus McGee, Gaston Bolaños. McGee went out there and like just kind of styled on him, to be honest. Like there were moments when Bolaños had success, obviously, but like anytime McGee wanted to do something, wanted to raid his castle, wanted to smash into him and do things and work some takedowns and some combination boxing and whatever, he was able to do that. McGee is a monster. It's a shame that he is 33 years of age because, man, like if this guy had gotten into MMA, like, well, not necessarily gotten into MMA because his first amateur fight I think was like his early 20s, which is normal. But like if he had taken MMA seriously at like I don't know, even like 25 or something, my lord, like the physical ability is there. There's bad decision making. He loves to do like spinning kicks and like spinning back fists and like jumping stuff. He does stupid things that you get away with when you're like that athletic. But otherwise, he's reasonably good at fighting a fight that actually is going to result in him winning. Like he's a little obsessed with like doing a little bit of everything. Like this fight, for example, he did consent for long stages to basically kickbox with Gaston Bolaños, who's a good kickboxer, and nothing else. So there is that problem. He has that Semmelsberger issue, but like with like athletic ability. I've got him against John Castaneda. You could go bigger with him. I saw a lot of people advocating for bigger. I just believe in a fundamental slow build or fundamental moving up the chain for challenge. And the problem with McGee's first three fights are they're all fighters with gigantic holes or lacking areas to their games. And he capitalized on that. So putting him in there with Castaneda is like the first kind of like well-rounded test for him. But there were other people who were like talking about like putting him in like not ranked fights, but like fights that are headbutting the rankings, which I get because he's 33 years old. But like my model is my model. I do think he's a super, super nice, humble guy, despite his heavy religious beliefs. Bolaños I've got against Willie Cat Santos because Bolaños is a guy who exists outside of the structure. I just want to see him in fun fights. He's not going anywhere. Farid Basharat versus Taylor Lapilus. Basharat won all 3 rounds, did a good job of just pressuring, keeping a tireless wrestling game in his face and like, doing what he can do. He handled that pretty well. Lapilus did a good job of defending takedowns, getting back up, forcing prolonged scrambles. Like I say it's a clean sweep for Basharat, and I don't honestly even see really a round that you can give to Lapilus, but I think that at the same time, it was a very good showing by Lapilus getting back up. And when he was able to be at range, obviously, he looked competitive. He looked as advertised. I just think in Lapilus's problem is a little bit more volume, and a little bit more sting. I think he needs, because like the problem is that he will give ground, and that is going to lead to people trying to wrestle him a lot. And he's obviously responded to that with increasingly better takedown defense, but there are better wrestlers than Farid Basharat out there. Basharat was classy in victory. He was very, very complimentary to his opponent, building him up, which I think is a lost art in MMA right now, of building up the opponent that you are fighting so that when you beat him, it looks like a good thing and not, I've been telling you that this guy is crap the entire time and I just went out there and I beat crap. Anyways, he had the Palestine keep fighting sentiment, which we could assume with any of the Muslim fighters. Let's be honest. He said something in Afghan. I don't know how to speak Afghan. There was no translation provided. That might have been something. I don't know. That's always the problem with the big long speech in a native language. It's like, I don't know what you're saying. And it could be anything. It could be really, really sweet. It could be really evil. I don't know. For Farid's next matchup, I've got Victor Henry penciled in there because Victor Henry fought Javed Basharat. That fight came to an end on the groin strike. I do feel like there has to be some kind of reckoning there, and they booked Javed against Ayman Sahabi for some reason. Anyways, that is a truly nonsensical booking. Like, am I alone on that? Am I the only one that thinks that is just dumb? And so let's do Henry Basharat too, just with the other Basharat. I've got Lapilus against 2 options. Number 1, Brady Hiestand, if you want to take a guy who is going to try and do some of the similar things with the pressure and the wrestling that Basharat did here, but like more exclusively, and give him that test. Or you could go with just something fun against like Jose Johnson. Justin Wilson got destroyed by John Silva. I have nothing else to say about the fight. Weston Wilson is not good enough to be here, not good enough of a technician, not good enough of an athlete, not good enough. Dude's got heart to keep fighting this long and whatever. But no, there's nothing there. Silva, he's the fight nerd guy. He barks. It just comes off as cringe energy. But you know what? Here's the thing. I will say this. I will remember who Jean Silva is. So mission accomplished in that regard. I don't enjoy it. I'm not really. It's not for me, bro. But don't get me wrong. I like Mike Breeden barking at cancel Jubilee in the middle of their fight because it started to work, and it was funny. It was amusing, but like the afterwards with the enthusiasm to want to show the finishing sequence with his coach and to be cringe, frankly, doesn't really resonate with me. But hey, put him up there. It's with Jack Jenkins, and Wilson gets cut. I'm sorry. You don't have to retire. I'm going to tell you to retire, but I am going to tell the UFC that like we do not need to see more. There is no one in the UFC featherweight division right now that I think would not beat Weston Wilson and would not really be tested by him in any way, shape, or form. Tom Nolan versus Nicholas Mota. I was right. I was bragging on Twitter about being right because a couple of the people I talked to on Twitter were like, "Man, I really thought Tom Nolan was." I'm like, "Nope, dude is 6'3". Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that like 6'3" lightweight Tom Nolan can't be something. I am saying that the guy's regional career was people who, when he came out and fought them, they had no real concept of what to do with a 6'3" form, 76-inch guy, reach wise, at lightweight. They didn't have that. They were talking about how like he doesn't have a great reach. He doesn't have a great reach for 6'3". 6'3", 76 inches. That's nothing. But like 76 inches at lightweight is insane. And Mota was a guy who was going to have the physical ability to punish his kicks, to explode in, to hit him, to take advantage of the fact that I don't think Nolan is a slick defensive fighter. And boom, knocked him out. There you go. Nicholas Mota getting a W. I was worried, I'm not gonna lie, because Nicholas Mota has kind of disappointed me a lot in this UFC run. I've been doing a lot of picking on him and not getting results, or a lot of picking him and not getting results. But yeah. Ooh, it's not fun to sneeze when you have I have a intercostal injury right now. It's not great. Moto's next fight really has to be against Trey Ogden. Win or lose against Kurt Caldwell, like that is the fight to make. It was such a weird finish. I feel like we got to revisit that. Nolan, I've got against Omar Morales, if he's still around. Omar Morales did fight for the UFC in 2023. So hang on, has he fought? Has he fought outside of the UFC? I guess that would be the question. Omar Morales, please. The resilient. 11-4. Yeah, he fought Karate Combat. Just probably not in the promotion anymore. Would make sense. He lost 3 in a row to Jonathan Pierce, Uros Medic, and Chris Duncan. I don't know. That's the level that I think Nolan's at. So I don't know. Pick someone Omar Morales like and put him in there with Tom Nolan. Joshua Van versus Felipe Bunez was the opener, and Van did his typical problem of kind of taking the first round off. It's like he doesn't have great instincts for creating a game plan right off the bat, and he has to like have that tactile sensation of what the guy is going to do and how he can counter it and what specific tools he's going to use to take him apart. And that's why like round 1 tends to be crap, because it's not like he's not aggressive in round 1. It's not like he's avoiding the fight. It's not like he's even really getting like sitting back and getting reads. He's going out there and kind of like doing his thing and just getting kind of popped up. And yeah, there was a low blow. There was all that fun. And then in the second round, it turned around and Van just stormed the castle. Dude is a solid athlete. He's got a good chin. Like I said, once he gets his reads, once he gets his ideas, he starts just taking you apart with an incredible. And the thing is it's not a short taking him apart like we see with a lot of like counter fighters and guys who like are like, all right, I've got my looks now. I'm gonna slowly take that weapon away. I'm gonna take that away. Chris Gutierrez is a great example of what I'm talking about. And no, Van is like, all right, I have my ideas. I have what I'm gonna do to you. I am going to storm your world. And he does that. the only thing is he did try to pull a leg lock, which was a little bit dumb. Don't do that. Don't. Nope. No. um, I don't have a lot more to say. I think Joshua Van is a very, very special fighter. I just need him to sort things out earlier in fights because at some point giving away the first round is going to be a problem. At some point that is just going to be something that you're going to have a harder and harder time actually coming back from. Especially, at flyweight where like finishes are relatively rare because you got smaller guys. There's not a lot of knockouts. There's not a lot of all that stuff that happens there. So you're basically going to give away a first round and then have to go out there and win the next 10 minutes kind of like flawlessly to get the job done. And that's a little bit of a problem. So if he could sort that out, he's going to be very, very good. I would not be surprised of all the fighters on this card if he's the one that becomes a champion. And I've got him against the winner of Azat Maxim and Charles Johnson. And I've got Bunez against Carlos Hernandez. Maybe it would make some sense. Unfortunately, also, I don't know. Like, Bunez was kind of weird because, like, he got to skip Dana White Contender Series. I think he's 13-7 now. So it's not like there hasn't been a lot of footage out there for how to beat Bunez and how, like, he's just not quite good enough. Like, he kind of gassed himself in this fight, for example. He's not a stunning athlete for flyweight, and he doesn't seem to have a stunning repertoire anyway. So that like kind of puts him in like the Carlos Hernandez mold. So I don't know. It's a shame. It's a shame that flyweight hasn't been developed better so that like these guys aren't facing like the absolute studs of the division like Joshua Van. And Carlos Hernandez is like the poster boy for that. He's fought so many guys that, like, realistically speaking, in a properly formed division, you wouldn't have to fight. There you go. But the UFC's tried to kill this division a couple of times. Also, stop putting it as the opener. Like, give this division some shine, please. They were trying to do on this card. They did have a flyweight co-main event, so it was attempted. But I think this fight should have been moved to the main card. I get why it wasn't there originally because Van was a late notice replacement, but like when you lost Kopp versus Ankalaev, this is the fight that should have replaced it. All right, that is my picks. My recap for the card. I will see you to predict the UFC pay-per-view coming up to my neck of the woods here in Canada. I mean, I'm not exactly ecstatic for Dricus du Plessis, Sean Strickland, but hey, you get what you get. Let's have a quick look at that card before I call it a day here. So I'm talking about UFC 295, of course, coming to you from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, the Scotiabank Arena. Sean Strickland, Dricus du Plessis, Raquel Pennington versus Amado Bueno Silva, Mike Malott, who is from my hometown, versus Neil Magny, Chris Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barrio, who I'm a big fan of, Arnold Allen, Mozart Evelev, I'm looking forward to that fight, Brad Katona versus Garrett Armfield, that's fun, Sean Woodson versus Charles Jourdain, that's fun, Ramon Tavares versus Series City, who is this guy? Series City. 5'11", 72-inch reach guy. Oh, he's fighting in Berlin. He's fighting in my hometown. I don't know. I don't know. And he's fought in BTC a couple times. How do I not know this guy? Seems to be fighting a lot more out of Battlefield Fight League, which is over on the West Coast. That's probably the problem. But he fought in BTC 19 against YL Watson. I feel like I saw that fight. And I just didn't remember him. Anyways, decent sized bantamweight. Anyways, I'll look at some footage and have some thoughts on that one. Polyana Viana versus Jillian Robertson. Sam Patterson versus Johan Lenis. Yasmin Jasudavicius versus Priscilla Cachoeira. That's really early in the card. It's kind of weirdly placed. And then you got Malcolm Gordon versus Jimmy Flick in a flyweight fight to open up the card. Don't get me wrong, Malcolm Gordon shouldn't be fighting at flyweight anymore after his weight cut issues. But hey, again, showcase the 125ers a little bit more. Please do not let this division go the way of when Mighty Mouse was leading it, and you were facing guys that like the casual fans had no knowledge of fighting for a title. Please don't do that. Please build this division. Anyways, that's all. Social medias are in the description. My Twitch is in the description. My Discord, where you can enjoy the MMA Fight League, is in the Discord. Or not in Discord, the description. Please check them out. And I will see you when it is time to put down the picks.